Okay, so again, everyone, hello. Thank you for joining me this evening. My name is Anastasia, and I'm the owner and founder of VegShe Health and Wellness. And as most of you know, I teach group fitness classes online. I'm a personal trainer and a nutrition coach. So with that said, let me go ahead and share my screen, and then we can check out this presentation I put together for you. And let me change the view on this so that, there we go. You know, having more monitors isn't always good. This is a lot more for me to manage, but I'm gonna do my best. Okay, so as I mentioned just a moment ago, my name is Anastasia. I have two wonderful dogs. This is one of them. His name is Matches, and he is a big handful, but he brings me so much joy. As you've probably all gathered, I'm a vegan, and my favorite food is potatoes. I could eat potatoes any way, anytime. I absolutely love potatoes. They're just like the best food. A little bit more about me. I have a Bachelor's of Science degree. As I mentioned, I'm a certified personal trainer, group fitness instructor, and nutrition coach. So lots of cool stuff that I enjoy talking about and being certified in, because this is what I love to do. So about today's subject, we're going to be talking about the difference between cruelty-free and vegan products and what that means and why it matters and how we can identify those products. So to start, I'm going to define a cruelty-free product, as you can see up on this presentation. So that means that the product and its ingredients have not been tested on animals. So that's not just the final product itself. That means the ingredients to make the product were also not tested on animals. So it definitely is a little bit more of a process for companies in terms of sourcing, but of course, it's incredibly important. Vegan. If a product is vegan, it does not contain animal parts or animal ingredients. So based on these definitions, you can already tell that some of the products you have at home might be cruelty-free but not vegan, or vice versa. And if you're lucky, the products you have at home are both, right? If you've put in the time to identify the difference. Does anyone have any questions about those definitions or anything so far? If not, that's fine. Okay. Stop me at any time if you have a question. All right, so how do we identify these products? So this can be really challenging. I find if a product is not explicitly labeled as cruelty-free or vegan, it can be really difficult to know, because some of the ingredients, like lactolate, for example, comes from milk, and you're not going to necessarily know that when you're reading a bunch of ingredients that sound like chemicals, or you're not really sure what they are. So there is some research that has to go into this if the product isn't explicitly labeled. But for the ones that are, which I'm always grateful for, these are the symbols you're going to be looking for. So we'll go ahead and start with cruelty-free. The most, I guess, widely known or identifiable logo is the leaping bunny, and that's the little black bunny with the blue circle around it. So this is commonly found in the United States and in Canada. So if a product is Leaping Bunny certified, it means it was not tested on animals. It's cruelty-free. That doesn't mean it's vegan. The second logo you might see is the cute little white and pink bunny, the cruelty-free bunny. That logo was created by PETA, and it does identify cruelty-free products. For vegan products, like I was saying, it's not always clear. It's not always stated on the label. If it is, these are the two most common logos that I see. The certified vegan from vegan.org, and the kind of weird vegan logo that's got what I think it's a sunflower on it. Those are the two that I come across the most. What I've ended up doing in situations where the product isn't labeled is I either Google it, I go to the company's website, and if it's still not explicitly stated, I contact them. And I've done that a lot, actually more so with supplements and vitamins, but still with cosmetics too, just because if it doesn't say and I'm not sure and their website isn't clear about it, I feel better asking. In most instances, if I can't find it in any of those places, they come back to me and they'll say that they're not vegan and they're not cruelty-free. So if you have to try that hard to find out, it's likely they didn't put it on the product because it's just not the case. I think one thing that can be particularly difficult with makeup and cosmetics is that if a company is not at its core vegan and cruelty free, sometimes their status as accidentally cruelty free can change. So what I mean by that is NARS makeup, for example. I don't know if you guys are familiar with NARS. You can buy their products at Sephora. Up until 2019, they were cruelty free because they didn't test their products or their ingredients on animals. In an effort to source less expensive ingredients, or basically just less expensive ingredients to create the final product, they started buying ingredients that were tested on animals. So as of 2019, they're not cruelty free. And they never labeled themselves as such. It was just a company that people knew was accidentally cruelty free, or it wasn't totally deliberate on their part. But the company has explained that depending on where they're sourcing ingredients, sometimes they're not cruelty free, so they can't label themselves that way. So it's not a big loss because there's a lot of other cruelty-free and vegan products out there, but it's something to consider with some of these big companies where they're trying to, increase their profit margins as much as possible. So when in doubt, only buy stuff that's got labels on it that identifies it as vegan and cruelty-free. If you want to put in the extra effort because there's something you use now that you love and you want to find out if it's safe to use, then by all means contact the company. They're usually happy to respond to those questions. So before I move on to the next slide, does anyone need me to clarify anything? Any questions? No? Maybe?
I do have one just because I do come across it often. So instead of having a label, I do find products that just say not tested on animals. Like, especially like when I go to like, those small stores like TJ Maxx and Ross, where they have like a bunch of random stuff. I'll see the skincare products that they have and there's no label, like they don't have the Leaping Bunny label or anything like that. It just says not tested on animals. So is there a difference? Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. There are those, and it's funny because I hadn't even thought about that. I've seen it. It's like in all caps, and it'll say not tested on animals. So those are still cruelty. I mean, if it says it's not tested on animals, then it's cruelty free. They just haven't necessarily licensed the Leaping Bunny, right? So
Okay.
Leaping Bunny is still a company that makes a profit, and so they do charge. I think it's a nominal fee, but they do charge companies to utilize their logo. And I think some companies, especially smaller ones, would rather just put not tested on animals. I think so to answer your question, they're still fine to use. I think part of the perk of the Leaping Bunny certification is that you know that they've done their own research into making sure that those claims are true, right? So I mean, companies could technically lie, but I feel like they'd be putting themselves at risk. So if it says not tested in animals, you're good to go. That doesn't necessarily mean it's vegan though. So if you are looking for it to be both vegan and cruelty free, that might not fit the bill if it just says not tested on animals.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense with the license. That's actually kind of like organic foods, right? Like you have like the small farms who don't have the money to go through, getting certified as or like getting the organic sticker on products. But like obviously it comes from farms and like they're natural and stuff, but because oh yeah, okay. Makes total sense. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that was a perfect question. Thank you for
Yeah.
asking and bringing that up. I didn't even think about those, but that happens a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, so for the next part, if there aren't any other questions, and of course we have time for questions at the end too if you think of something. So why we're all here, and we want to know about this is why does it matter, right? So who cares if the products are cruelty free and vegan? Well, the animals care. I care. So the reason why I feel like this is important to talk about, and the reason why we're having this webinar is because it does matter and it has an effect on the lives of animals and their quality of life. So to me, as a person who hasn't been vegan for that long, it's only been a couple years and I was vegetarian before that, I would have to say the process of going vegan and then the process of changing all my products to being cruelty free, going vegan was a lot more work and it took more time. So I guess what I'm trying to say is if you're looking to prevent unnecessary suffering of animals in the easiest way possible, this is it. It's to buy cruelty-free and vegan products. So just taking the time to look for those labels or to look on the website, just the little bit of effort that it takes for you to do that is saving lives. It doesn't mean you have to give up any of the food you're eating. It's as simple as just buying different lipstick. And so to me, this is the easiest and fastest way to have a positive influence on the lives of others. And I think that for me personally makes me feel good about the products that I'm using. I think too, and you've probably noticed in recent years, there's been an increase in the number of cruelty-free and vegan products and even vegan foods that you're seeing in stores, fast food restaurants and grocery stores, and just the regular restaurants you eat at. You're probably seeing an increase in vegan options. And that's because people are voting for what they want with their dollar, right? So if consumers start demanding vegan, cruelty-free products, these companies are going to start making them. It's as simple as that. And so that didn't happen overnight. Vegans have been working really hard for a long time to try and get, the Beyond Burger at McDonald's or whatever. Same thing goes for these products. And so my hope is that as we all start to make more conscious consumer choices, that eventually it'll just be the standard. We just won't test on animals and we won't use animal products or animal ingredients in our products. So that's why it matters. The other thing that a lot of people don't know is that the FDA doesn't require animal testing. So these companies are just opting to do it, but it's not required. The other thing is the tests that are being run on these animals, a rabbit, for example, might have a specific reaction to a lotion. That reaction in a human could be really different. The biology of a rabbit's very different from a person. It's not one-to-one. So the testing in itself is not super accurate as to, what the reaction will be in a person. The other thing to consider is that most of these products can be tested on cells in a laboratory, like in a petri dish, right? There's actually no reason why we need to test them on a living thing. So to me, if it can be avoided, let's avoid it. It seems unnecessary. The other thing that I want to mention about animal testing, and I'll make this brief because no one likes this part, is that I think there's a lot of misconceptions about what animal testing looks like. And I'm not going to show you, so never fear. It's just, I think people are under the impression that the lotion that you're using, let's say it's not cruelty-free, you might be under the impression that they just rub it on a rabbit and then wait to see if it breaks out, right? But that's not what animal testing looks like at all. Oftentimes, in order to determine the toxicity of a lotion, for example, they force feed it to the rabbit until it dies, or they rub it into the rabbit's eyes to see if it causes blindness. And not just rabbits, this is also mice and rats and other animals. But it's not just as simple as the application of the product and seeing what happens. It's mass quantities of the product being forced into a small creature until it passes away. And if the animal manages to survive, they're often killed because they can't be used for future testing because they've pretty much already been damaged. So this is really the reason why it matters. Because to me, if it's as simple as changing my lipstick or my shampoo, and that means that, a bunny rabbit's not going to die, then I'm all for it. And I think that that's important to all people, vegans or non-vegans. No one wants to see animals die unnecessarily. So it seems like an easy switch. I think the other thing, and I'm not going to get into the details on this, but if the product's not vegan, I can promise you that the ingredients that were taken from the animal to make the product will eventually either cause that animal or its offspring to die prematurely. So it's just something to consider when you're buying things. The choices that we make have an effect on other living things. And so I'm going to stop with the sad stuff, but this is why it matters, and this is why it's important. So let's save some animals, and let's prevent some unnecessary suffering in the world, and just read the label the next time that you buy your nail polish. With that being said, I don't want to leave you hanging. I want you to know how you can do that. So like I mentioned, these are the logos that you're going to want to be looking for. I'm also including some links here. And don't worry about having all of these right now. I'm going to send an email at the end of the webinar that's going to have all the links and all the logos and all the recommendations. So don't stress about clicking on everything now and trying to find things. So Leaping Bunny, their website has a really extensive list of cosmetics and products that are cruelty-free. Ethical Elephant is another website that you can check out, and they also have social media accounts. So if you're looking to stay up to date and you're less interested in doing research on their website and social media is easier, they all have social media accounts. The other thing I wanted to mention is Kinder Beauty, and Kinder Beauty is a subscription box. And I'm not affiliated with them in any way, but it's something that I tried that I really liked, so I wanted to tell you about it. So Kinder Beauty is a monthly subscription box, and all of their products are vegan and cruelty-free, completely. And the cool thing about the subscription is it also gets you access to their private Facebook group, which is this amazing group of people who interact with each other constantly. I mean, that is like one of the busiest Facebook groups I've ever been a part of, where people go online and they just say, hey, I can't find this deodorant that's cruelty-free and vegan, and all these people will chime in and provide all these helpful resources. So even if you just sign up for Kinder Beauty for like a month just to give it a try, you get access to that group, and I find that that is a really powerful place to interact with like-minded people and get access to this information that's not always so easy to find. The other thing I liked about the subscription, and I just did a limited run because I couldn't use all the products, it was too much. But what I liked about it too was a lot of the companies were small businesses and they're woman owned. Not 100% explicitly, but the majority of them were. And so I felt like I was supporting those industries while also learning about these companies I'd never heard of before that were a little bit smaller. So it's something worth checking out if you feel like you want to gift yourself a little subscription box. The other website that I mentioned in the presentation is Sephora, and I know we're all familiar with Sephora. The reason why I bring them up is that recently on their website, they've added some filters when you're searching for products. They have included a vegan checkbox and a cruelty-free checkbox. They're independent of each other, so you have to check both, and it filters through all of their products so that you can see which ones are cruelty-free and which ones are vegan. I have my own go-to brands, but that has been helpful for me as they've added new companies. So check that out. It's definitely worth making the effort just to filter out those little details to see what products are available. For my go-to brands for Sephora specifically, I like Milk makeup, which is funny that it's called Milk makeup because it's vegan. And the other one that I really like is First Aid Beauty, and I'll be showing you some of their products during the show and tell portion. Does anybody have any questions so far? I'm going to drink some water because this is a lot of talking.
So you mentioned on the other slide that when they're testing, they might feed a certain product. Like, is that only for certain like dietary purposes, or is it any cosmetic?
That's a really good question. It's any cosmetic. So oftentimes they'll put a feeding tube into the animal and force feed them shampoo or lotion or anything you can really get into liquid form. And the justification for that is to determine the toxicity. So like if you've got a kid and your kid swallows your shampoo, is it going to kill your kid, right? So it's to determine that. But the thing is you don't have to force feed the animal to determine that. You can still test toxicity in a lab. So to answer your question, it's not just with like protein shakes and bars and stuff. It's with stuff that you wouldn't normally eat. And it's in the event that someone accidentally eats it. But like I said, it doesn't need to be tested in that way. But unfortunately, yes, they do end up eating lotion and all kinds of weird stuff. Okay, I guess I'll move on to the next slide, which is the Q&A before we do our show and tell. Did anyone have any other questions before I do my show and tell and stop the recording?
Is there anything off limits, like disturbing wise? Is there like a borderline?
What, like questions?
Yeah.
Oh,
like a very touchy subject.
I'm not sensitive about it. I don't think so. I mean, I didn't show you guys anything graphic because I didn't want to scare you, but I don't think your question will be offensive. Is everybody okay with any questions?
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Okay, so I just generally want to know if this is true. So when I was a student of veterinary medicine, one of my teachers, she practiced in a clinic for, I think she said around 6 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
She mentioned that when like an animal in the shelter would have to be put down because they weren't adoptable or anything of the sort, she mentioned that sometimes those corpses are used, yeah, are used for testing in that sense, or like to be put into products. I don't really believe that, but at the same time, I know it's possible. So do you know if that's true?
It's certainly possible. It's my understanding. My roommate in college was an animal health science major, and one of her jobs was working in one of these laboratories for the welfare of the animals, whatever that means, given the conditions they're in. But in the labs that she worked in, all the animals were alive. So that's not to say they can't or wouldn't test on animals that have passed away, but that's not the majority of the animals that are tested on, not to my knowledge. These are living, breathing, functioning animals. And I think a lot of times they're actually even bred for this purpose. So the rabbits, the mice, the rats, and it's not always just small animals either. I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with lab tests that are done on, chimpanzees because of their similarities to our genetic makeup. So to answer your question, I can't say with 100% certainty, but I know that's not the majority of the animals. Another concerning thought is that the animals that aren't adopted might end up in these laboratories while they're still alive. But I can't say that for sure, but I imagine that would be a pretty steady source of animals. So I can't say with 100% confidence. But that is a good question, and I can look into it.
Would you like to hear something disturbing?
Sure.
On that topic, you can Google, probably about a month ago, there's a place in Los Angeles that's run by the VA, and they are adopting cats from shelters and experimenting on them. And evidently that place has been there forever, and they've been doing this forever, but it just got into the news. So yeah, it happens, and it's normal to a segment of our society.
Sure. I didn't know about that. Thank you for sharing. So I guess my guess was right. I guess that does happen.
Yeah,
Unfortunately.
you're absolutely right. Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah, that's really sad. And I think too, I think it's very common in the culture in the United States to have different feelings or emotions towards domesticated animals than we do towards non-domesticated animals. But I think it's important to see them all as living things. So as upsetting, see, it made it into the news because these are cats that people could adopt and have as house pets. But when it's like bunny rabbits and I don't know, mice, I guess people just don't sweat it as much because I don't know, it's weird the value we place on different types of animals, I suppose. Does anyone have any questions before we move on to show and tell?
No, but that's a good point you made about if we have an emotional connection to our animal, we may focus more on the animal rights in terms of that type of animal as opposed to other animals. So yeah, that's a good reminder to keep them all in mind.
Yeah, thank you. I think
Thank
so
you.
too. And I feel like my first dog that I adopted, she was my inspiration for going vegan. I went vegetarian first, but she was my inspiration for going vegan. And then I was like, wait, I can't go vegan for all the other animals, but not consider her, vice versa. And you have to see them all as living things. And it's just like with people, no one person has more value than another. We're all living things. We're all inhabitants of this planet, and we all have value. All of our lives matter, and the quality of our lives matter. So, okay, so I will jump into the show and tell portion. I'm going to show you a couple products that I really like, and then I'll stop the recording, and then you guys can jump into if you had anything you wanted to share. So I will start with No Tox Life. So let me see if I can make this easy for you guys to see. So this is the deodorant that I use. The brand is called No Tox Botanicals, or No Tox Botanicals. They're based out of Los Angeles, and it's a mother-daughter business, and everything they sell is vegan and cruelty-free. This particular deodorant is pure aloe. It's unscented. I don't really like fragrance. I have a sensitive sense of smell, and I just don't like it. So for me, I like the basic option. There are plenty of other options that they have that are really lovely. This deodorant, and don't freak out, it retails for $20, but I've also had this particular stick of deodorant since October 2019. It takes a really long time to use these. And I mean, I use deodorant a couple times a day because I'm always teaching classes and sweating and all that. So it's a little expensive in the initial investment, but you don't have to buy deodorant for like 2 years. So I think it's worth it. I like to support their small business. It's aluminum free. And the other thing I should mention is I know that people really like to not sweat. It's not an antiperspirant. I definitely still sweat, but I don't smell. So for me, I don't have a problem with a little sweat as long as I don't stink. So No Tox Life, I really like their stuff. The other brand that I mentioned was First Aid Beauty, and I buy them from Sephora, but you can buy their stuff directly from them as well. So this is kind of what their packaging, most of it looks like. And right now I'm using their hydrating serum. I'm using their retinol. Let's see if I can get that to focus. And I'm also using their tinted moisturizer, which I'm a really big fan of, during the day, just so I don't get too much sun. All of their stuff is vegan and cruelty-free. They're strictly a vegan and cruelty-free brand. So I'm a big supporter of them. The other thing I like is that everything that they make is specifically tailored to people with sensitive skin. And so everything they make is really gentle. They use a lot of like oatmeal and stuff. It's really nice. For example, their retinol cream, most of the time when you start a retinol regimen, retinol will cause some redness and dryness in your face. It's a little bit strong and it can throw off the pH of your skin. Well, their formula is so gentle. I had no redness at all. There was no transition into using retinol, and it was the first time I'd used it in my life. And I tend to be pretty sensitive. So I like their products because I never have a negative reaction to them. The other brand that I really like, and you've probably heard of them before, is Dr. Bronner's. They've been around forever. So I recently started using their toothpaste, and this comes in 4 different flavors. This one is peppermint, but they also have spearmint, cinnamon, and I think anise, like star anise. Also vegan and cruelty free. One thing to note about the toothpaste, they don't use chemicals that cause foaming, like a foaming agent. And so one thing you have to get used to is that this toothpaste doesn't foam, which is funny because I've just always had foaming toothpaste, and I think there's something about it that makes you think your mouth is getting cleaner, but I don't think that's necessarily the case. So this is really good. It's really refreshing. You can buy it on Amazon. You can buy it directly through them or get it at Sprouts or the grocery store. It's about $6. So I think that's how much toothpaste usually is, but I do like it. The other thing of theirs that I use is their Castile bar soap. And I use the baby unscented soap. Like I said, I really don't like fragrance, but my husband really likes the almond oil one, and I think there's a peppermint one as well. Also vegan, cruelty free, and their stuff is also fair trade and non-GMO. So they kind of have all the things, which is really cool. And the bars of soap last a super long time, and I'm a really big fan. So those are my products. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording in case anybody wants to jump in and share their products as well.